Good day, everyone. We are the Group 4, and I am Daniel Raffles, and I'm gonna discuss the origins and manifestations of global environmental crisis and also how it relates with everyday encounters with pollution. But first, let's define global environmental crisis. A global environmental crisis is as a dramatic, unexpected, irreversible worsening of the environment leading to significant welfare losses. Welfare losses that affects people health, happiness, and needs, especially fortunes. Next is the origin of or the causes of the environmental crisis is the environmental crisis have been subject of considerable debate. However, in general, its main causes or origin are now acknowledged to be first is the technological developments over the course of human history. These technologies have damaged our world in two main ways. First is the pollution, second is the depletion of natural resources. So, let's start with the pollution. In the pollution, it involves the air and water pollution. The air pollution occurs when harmful or excessive quantities of gases such as carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitric oxide, and methane are introduced into the Earth atmosphere. The main sources all relate to technology which emerged following the Industrial Revolution, such as burning of the fossil fuels, factories, power stations, mass agriculture, and especially the vehicles. The vehicles are the most commonly used that affect greatly affect the pollution because it releases some smoke that affect the environment and also the factories. Second is the depletion of natural resources. Resource depletion is another negative impact of technology on the environment, and also it refers to the consumption of a resource faster than it can be replenished. Natural resources consist of those that are in existence without having human created them, and they can be either renewable or non-renewable. Secondly is the rapidly increasing human population. Um, Increasing human population has led to significant increases in human population density in many parts of the world. More people, more required of resources, which means as the population increase, the earth resource or resources deplete more rapidly. And also, it is result of this depletion about deforestation and loss of biodiversity as humans strip the earth of resources accommodate rising population numbers. And secondly is the deforestation, just like I said, the loss of trees and other vegetation can cause climate change, desertification, soil erosion, fewer crops, flooding, increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and host of problems for indigenous people. Secondly is the loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity underpins the health of the planet and has a direct impact on all our lives. And it put simply, reduced biodiversity means millions of people faces a future where food, supplies are more vulnerable to pests and disease. And where fresh water is in an irregular or short supply, for humans that is worried. All in all of these problems or environmental issues or crisis leads to global warming and the climate change. But let's start with the global warming. Global warming stresses the ecosystem throughout temperature rises, water shortage, increased fire threats, drought, weed and pest invasions, intense storm damage, and salt invasion. And just to name a few, I'm gonna state examples about the Australia Great Natural Icons, such as the Great Barrier Reef, are already threatened. And secondly is about the climate change. Climate change is a long-term shift in global or regional climate patterns that often climate changes specifically to the rise in global temperature from the mid 20th century to present. The impact of climate change are the cost of adapting coastal areas to rising sea levels and the loss of the capacity to work due to heat, and fresh water will be in short supply in some areas. Disease will spread due to higher temperatures. Extreme meteorological phenomena will cause widespread poverty. Um, Prices of basic foodstuff and consumer goods will rise. And the shrinking productivity of harvest. Those that I have stated are the social and economic impact of climate change. So that's all for today. The next reporter is Dominic Sator.
So good morning, sir. Good morning, fellow cadets. So today I'm going to discuss the origins and manifestations of global environmental crisis, relate everyday encounters with global warming. So what is global warming? So global warming is an unusual rapid increase in Earth's average surface temperature over the past century, primarily due to the greenhouse gases released as people burn fossil fuels. Temperatures are certain to go up further, despite ups and downs from the year to year. Global average surface temperature is rising. What are the origins and manifestation of global environmental crisis? So it occurs largely as a result of combustion of fossil fuels, emissions from agricultural and petroleum, and land use changes that accompany the destruction, clearance, or burning of forests. So most of the large origins of global environmental crisis is due to like burning of forests, greenhouse effects, too much smoke in the fabrics. That's are the global manifestation of global environmental crisis. Next is how does global warming affect us? So global warming affects us in the warmer temperature over time are changing weather patterns and distributing the usual balance of nature. So as you can see nowadays, we can see the global warming affects it totally affects us. So this poses many risks of human being and all other forms of life on Earth. So what are the global warming that we see and affects us today as of today? So hotter temperature. So first is hotter temperature. Nearly all land areas are seeing more hot days at heat waves of as of 2021. as one of the hottest years on record. Higher temperature increase heat-related illness that and can make it more difficult to work and move around. So when it's too hot, or yes, it's when it's too hot, we barely go outside, or we can't do our work in normal days. Like we can't exercise or get a walk or jog because it's too hot. Uh, we might get heat stroke. So higher temperature increase heart-related illness and can make it more difficult to work and move around. Wilderness start more easily to spread more rapidly and conditions are harder. So the next one is the more severe storms. So in the Philippines, you can say that it is true that because of the global warming, there's more severe storms coming to us. So the one example of a severe storm is the Yolanda that hits the Leyte, out Tacloban and the Leyte area. So uh, changes in temperature causing change in rainfall. So this results in more severe and frequent storms. They cause flooding, landslides, destroying homes and communities and costing billions of pounds. So the next one is the increase of drought. So water is becoming scarier in more regions. Drought can steer destruction, sand and dust storms that can move billions of tons across continents. Deserts are expanding, reducing land for growing food. Many people now face a threat of not having enough water on a regular basis. So, how does increase of drought affects us? It affects us when it's too much of drought. Our our rice field is going to be dried, and when it comes to our farmer can't uh, harvest many rice due to increase of drought. So a warming, rising ocean, the ocean soaks up most of the heat from the global warming. This melts the ice sheets and raises the sea level, shortening coastal and island communities. The ocean also absorbs carbon dioxide, keeping from the atmosphere. More carbon dioxide makes the ocean more acidic. So within endangered marines life, you can see due to global warming. So the icebergs are falling in the ocean. So when the icebergs are falling into the ocean, it raises the oceans or the seawater, and it will affect us. Or when it comes to severe storms, there will be storm surge because the ocean rises, that like before, loss of species. So climate change poses a series of survival of species on land in the ocean. These risks increased temperature, climate, forest fires, extreme weather, and invasive pests and diseases are among many threats. Some specific will be able to relocate, survive, but other will not. So we can see this in the other countries, like in California. There's on 2020, yes, there's a forest fire that so big that affects a lot of animal species there. So not enough food, changes in climate, and increase in extreme weather events are among the reasons behind global rises, the hunger and poor nutrition. Fishes, crops, and livestock may be destroyed to become less productive. Heat stress and diminished water in grassland are increasing. So more health risks. Next is the more health risks. Changing weather patterns are expanding disease such as malaria. Extreme weather events increase disease and deaths, and it makes it difficult proper healthcare system to keep on. Other risks of health includes increased hunger and poor nutrition in places where the people cannot grow or find sufficient food. So the last one is the poverty and displacement. So climate change increases the factors that put and keep people in poverty. Floods may sweep up urban slums, destroying homes and livelihood. Heat can make it difficult to work outdoors jobs. With weather-related disaster displays of 23 million people a year, leaving many more vulnerable of poverty. So that is my report or my topic, the origin of manifestations of global environmental crisis relate everyday encounters with global warming. Thank you, sir.
So, what is desertification? Desertification is defined as a process of land degradation in arid, semi-arid, and subhumid areas due to various factors including climatic variation and human activities. Or, to put it another way, desertification results in persistent degradation of dryland and fragile ecosystems due to man-made activities and variations in climate. So, desertification, in short, is when land that was of another type of biome turns into a desert biome because of changes of all sorts. A huge issue that many countries have is the fact that there are large pockets of land that are going through a process that is known as desertification. So, there are various causes of desertification. The first one is overgrazing. Animal grazing is a huge problem for many areas that are starting to become desert biomes. If there are too many animals that are overgrazing in certain spots, it makes it difficult for the plants to grow back, which hurts the biomes and makes it lose its former green glory. Deforestation. Number 2, when people are looking to move into an area, or they need trees in order to make houses and do other tasks, then they are contributing to the problems related to desertification. Without the plants and trees, the rest of the biomes cannot thrive. The third one is the farming practices. Some farmers do not know how to use the land effectively. They may essentially strip the land of everything that it has before moving on to another plot of land. By stripping the land or the soil of its nutrients, desertification becomes more of a reality for the area that is being used for farming. Number 4 is the excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides. The use of excessive amounts of fertilizers and pesticides to maximize their crop yields in the short term often leads to significant damages for the soil. In the long run, this may turn from arable into arid land over time. It will no longer be suitable for farming purposes after a few years of excessive farming, since the soil has been damaged too much over time. Number 5 is the overdrafting of groundwater. Groundwater is the fresh water found underground and also one of the largest water sources. Overdrafting is the process in which groundwater is extracted in excess of the equilibrium yield of the aquifer that is pumping, or the excessive pulling up of groundwater from underground aquifers. Its depletions causes desertifications. The sixth one is the urbanization and other types of land development. As mentioned above, development can cause people to go through and kill plant life. It can also cause issues with the soil due to chemicals and other things that may harm the ground. As areas become more urbanized, there are fewer places for plants to grow, thus causing desertification. The seventh one is the climate change. Climate change plays a huge role in desertification. As the days get warmer and periods of drought become more frequent, desertification becomes more and more imminent. Unless climate change is slowed down, huge areas of land will become desert. Some of those areas may even become uninhabitable as time goes on. So, stripping the land of resources, it's the eighth one. If an area of land has natural resources, like natural gas, oil, or minerals, people will come and mine it or take it up. This usually strips the soil of nutrients, which in turn kills the plant life, and eventually leads to the process of becoming a desert biomes as time goes on. The ninth one is the natural disasters. There are some cases where the land gets damaged because of natural disasters, including drought. In those cases, there isn't a lot that people can do except work to try and help rehabilitate the land after it has already been damaged by nature. The next one is the soil pollution. Soil pollution is a significant cause of desertification. Most plants are quite sensitive to their natural living conditions. When soils becomes polluted due to various human activities, the respective area of land may suffer from desertification in the long run. Higher the level of pollution, more will be the degradation of soil over time. The 11th one is the overpopulation and the excessive consumption. Since our world population is continuously growing, the demand for food and material goods is also increasing at an alarming rate. Our overall level of consumption is also increasing at a steady rate. Thus, to fulfill our demand, we have to optimize our farming processes to harvest even higher crop yields. However, this excessive optimization of farming will hurt the soil and will eventually turn into desertification of land in the long run. The next part, or the last part, mining. Mining is another big reason for desertification. Large amounts of resources have to be extracted by industries to meet our demand for material goods. For mining, large areas of land have to be used, which causes deforestation as well as pollution of the nearby areas. The next one is the devastating effects of desertification. The first one is the farming becomes next to impossible. So if an area becomes a desert, then it's almost impossible to grow substantial crops there without special technologies. This can cost a lot of money to try and do, so many farmers will have to sell their land and leave their desert areas. The second one is the decrease in crop yields. A major effect of desertification is the decrease in crop yields. Once land turns from arable to arid, it is often no longer suitable for farming purposes. In turn, many farmers may lose their livelihood since they often solely rely on farming as their single source of income. If their land becomes arid, they may no longer be able to provide sufficient crop yields to make a living out of it. The next one is the hunger. Without farms in the areas, the food that those farms produce will become much scarier or scarcer, and the people who live in those local areas will be a lot more likely to try and deal with hunger problems. Animals will also go hungry, which will cause even more of a food storage. The next one is flooding. Without plant life in an area, flooding is a lot more imminent. Not all deserts are dry. Those that are wet could experience a lot of flooding because there is nothing to stop the water from gathering and going all over the place. Flooding can also negatively affect the water supply, which will be discussed next. Number 5 is the poor water quality. If an area becomes a desert, the water quality is going to become a lot worse than it would have been otherwise. This is because plant life plays a significant role in keeping the water clean and clear. Without its presence, it becomes a lot of more difficult for you to be able to do that. The next one is overpopulation. When areas start to become desert, animals and people will go to other areas where they can actually thrive. This causes crowding and overpopulation, which will, in the long run, end up continuing the cycle of desertification and started this whole thing anyway. The next one is poverty. All of the issues that we've talked about above related to the problem of desertification can lead to poverty. It is not kept in check. Without food and water, it becomes harder for people to thrive, and they take a lot of time to try and get the things that they need. The next one is biodiversity loss. In general, the destruction of habitats and desertification may also contribute a lot loss of biodiversity. While some species may be able to adjust to the altered environmental conditions properly, many species will not be able to do so and may suffer from serious declines in populations. Number 9 is endangerment and extinction of species. The desertification results in a decline in a population for which species may become endangered or even extinct. This problem is especially severe for species that are already endangered, as the small number of animals or plants that remain may also die off over time, which may even lead to the extinction of species. The next one is the destruction of habitats. Desertification often leads to a loss of habitats for many animals and plants. Desertification may alter the living conditions of the local flora and fauna that make it possible or impossible for animals and plants to sustain their populations. After desertification, regions suffer from water shortages due to climate change, and animals may suffer and die since water is vital for all of life in our planet. The next one is migration. The desertification implies the destruction of the livelihood of farmers. This problem becomes even worse when large areas of land that are currently used for farming will then no longer be suitable for farming due to a lack of water triggered by global warming. This results in serious migration of movements. That's all.
Good day everyone, and especially to you sir. My name is Sigrid Ryan, and my topic is all about ozone depletion, and I will discuss what is ozone depletion. So ozone depletion, gradually thinning of Earth's ozone layer in the upper atmosphere caused by the release of chemical compound containing gaseous chlorine or bromine from industry and other human activities. So the thinning is most pronounced in the polar region, especially over Antarctica. So ozone depletion is a major environmental problem because it increases the amount of ultraviolet or UV radiation that reaches Earth's surface, and which is damaging to human health. And the negative effects includes increase in certain type of skin cancer, eye cataract, and immune deficiency disorder. UV rays also affect plants growth, reducing agricultural productive. So the ozone layer reduces harmful UV radiation reaching the Earth's surface, and the ozone layer is present in Earth's atmosphere to 15 to 35 km above Earth in the lower portion of the stratosphere and has relatively high concentration of ozone. So ozone layer depletion is the gradually taking of the Earth's ozone layer present in the upper atmosphere. So ozone depletion also consists of a much larger springtime degrees in stratosphere ozone around Earth polar region, which is referred to as the ozone hole. So the main cause of ozone depletion and the ozone hole is manufacture chemical, especially manufacture halocarbon refrigerants, solvent, propellants, and foam flowing agents. So chlorofluorocarbons. Since the early 1970s, scientists observed reducing in stratospheric ozone, and it was found more prominent in polar region. ODS substances have a lifetime of above 100 years. So the depletion of the ozone layer has harmful effects of human health, animals, environment, and marine life. So study demonstrate that an increase of UV radiation rays causes a higher risk of the skin cancer, plays a major role in malignant melanoma development, sunburns, quick aging, eye cataract, blindness, and weakened immune system. So direct exposure to the ultraviolet radiation also lead to skin and eye cancer in animals. So UV rays negatively affects plants, crops. It may lead to minimal plant growth, smaller leaf size, flowering, and photosynthesis in plants. So lower quality crops for human and decline in a plant's productive will in turn affect soil erosion and the carbon cycle. Plankton and zooplankton are greatly affected by the exposure to the UV radiation rays. These are higher in the aquatic food chain. If the plankton declines, it would likely have wide-reaching effects effects for all marine life in the lower food chain. So the solution of ozone depletion is Montreal Protocol was proposed in 1987 to unite the world to cut out production and import of ozone depleting substances. So the Montreal Protocol pays down that consumption and production of the different ozone depleting substance or ODC in a stepwise manner with different timetables for development and developing countries. Every individual should also take steps to prevent the depletion of the ozone layer. One should avoid using pesticides and shift to natural methods to get rid of pests instead of using chemicals. So the vehicle emits a large amount of greenhouse gases that lead to the global warming as well as ozone depletion. So therefore, the use of vehicles should be minimized as much as possible. Most of the cleaning productive have chemical that affects on the ozone layer. So we should substitute that we eco-friendly product maintain air conditioner as their malfunction cause CFC to escape into the atmosphere. So that's all. Thank you guys.
Environmental crisis is defined as a rapid, unanticipated, and irreversible deterioration of the environment, resulting in severe welfare losses. As countries grow and develop their economies, people forgot to look back where they started. People forgot how balanced this world is before the era of technologies. Some of them tend to disregard issues concerning the environment and the people at large. Many forests, mountains, and trees were destroyed in exchange of buildings and factories that were built for the benefit of other people, without considering the fact that our world is slowly deteriorating. Here is an example of a country that is very well known for pollution contribution. It is China. China is considered as rank 1 contributor of the pollution in the world, emitting high amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide, or CO2, is an odorless gas that is highly important to life on Earth. CO2 is also known as a greenhouse gas. An excessive concentration can disrupt the natural regulation of temperature in the atmosphere and lead to global warming. So, as this temperature rises, the more they release CO2, the more our ozone layer depletes. That results to the increase of temperature in the world, or the global warming. So after Beijing's air apocalypse sparked a mass outpouring of anger and frustration among citizens, China set out to clean up the air quality of its cities. The government prohibited new coal-fired power plants and shut down a number of old plants in the most polluted regions, including city clusters of Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei, and the Pearl and Yangtze deltas. Large cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou restricted the number of cars on the road and started introducing all electric bus fleets. The country reduced its iron and steel making capacity and shut down coal mines. So these are some of the alternatives or the solutions that the Chinese government think about in order to reduce the emission of CO2 in the atmosphere. So other issues like, for example, in the Philippines, the Manila Bay in the Philippines, in which is known to be the most polluted bay in the Philippines. This bay is full of different waste materials dumped on it, in which can cause great harm to people, marine biodiversity, and most especially to the environment itself. But thanks to our current president, Rodrigo Roa Duterte, that gave rebirth to the Manila Bay and is now a part of a tourist attraction for its clean and clean and neat look. So these are just some of the environmental issues of the world. There are still a lot to tackle about concerning with the other environmental issues around the globe. Hence, we people are the main benefactors of the wonders and resources of the world. So shall we should restore the peace, balance, and harmony we took from it.
How population growth works. So the concept of population growth is tricky because populations can grow exponentially, similar to the way a bank or credit card company compounds interest. The formula for exponential population growth is n equals to n0 ERT, where NO is the starting population, E is the logarithmic constant, R is the rate of growth, birth rate minus death rate, and its T is time. If you plot this equation, you see a curve arching upward over time as the population increases exponentially. So, population's environmental issues. More people require more resources, which means that as the population increases, the Earth's resources deplete more rapidly. The result of this depletion is deforestation and loss of biodiversity as humans strip the Earth of resources to accommodate rising population numbers. Population growth also results in increased greenhouse gases, mostly from CO2 emissions. For visualization during that same 20th century that saw fourfold of population growth. So CO2 emissions increased 12-fold. As greenhouse gases increase, so do climate patterns, ultimately resulting in the long-term pattern called climate change. The use of resources and the impact of environmental issues are not equal around the globe. People in developed countries requires sustainability, more resources to maintain their lifestyles compared with the people in developing countries. For example, the United States, which contains 5% of the world's population, currently produces a full 25% of CO2 emissions. People in developing countries tend to feel the impacts of environmental problems more acutely, especially if they live in coastal areas directly affected by sea level rise and extreme weather events that accompany climate change. The most vulnerable populations also experience decreased access to clean water, increased exposure to air pollution and diseases, which may result from decreased biodiversity, and may feel the impact more immediately as local resources, including plants and animals, deplete. While the interconnected problems of population growth and environmental issues seem overwhelming, it is important to remember that humans can make changes that positively impact the planet. One good starting point is understanding and applying the concept of sustainability, which is the opposite of resource depletion. Sustainability describes a model of resource usage in which the current generation uses only the resources the Earth provides indefinitely, like solar or wind power, instead of burning fossil fuels, to ensure the future generations inherit
So, good
resources.
evening. I am here to report about the food security. Food security, as defined by United Nations Committee on World Food Security, means that all people, all times, have physical, social, and economic access to efficient, safe, and nutrition food that meets their food references, dietary need for some active, healthy life. So, almost 1 in 7 people around the world are chronically hungry, lacking enough food to be healthy and lead active lives. This is despite the fact enough food exists all over the world's people. Agriculture policies, the prices of certain food commodities such as meat and grain, and economic development impact food security, but demographic trends also play a role. Increasing numbers of people often given drive up demand for food, which typically result in additional use of arable land and water. This is especially true in absence of adequate food production technology and integrated programs that simultaneously address community needs for food reproductive health. So the Food and Agriculture Organization projects that by 2050, population and economic growth will result in doubling of demand for food globally. Addressing the health of needs family in the developing world, including through increased access family planning, can help slow rapid population, improve health of families, enhance their security.
So, good day everyone. I'm Cadet Sanchez Reward and I will explain the relationship of population's growth about the environmental sustainability. So, sustainability is improves the quality of our lives and protect our ecosystems and preserves natural resources for futures and also our generations. Sustainability is the key to a better future. Humans rely on natural resources for business or other activities in our environment, and also the survivals of the capacities of sustainability can lead to the exhaustions of the most natural resources. So, good day everyone. I'm Cadet Sanchez Reward and I will explain the relationship of population's growth about the environmental sustainability. So, sustainability is improves the quality of our lives and protect our ecosystems and preserves natural resources for futures and also our generations. Sustainability is the key to a better future. Humans rely on natural resources for business or other activities in our environment, and also the survivals of the capacities of sustainability can lead to the exhaustions of natural resources. So when people talk about environmental sustainability, they are talking about responsibly managing natural resources so they will still be available in the future. This includes both limiting use of natural resources and protecting them from degradations. So, for example, fresh water can be sustained both by curbing excess water use by preventing of what preventing of pollutants from entering the water supply. An important parts of sustainability is educations. Many people do not effectively use their resources. That's because they don't know how to do. And to give examples of this is farmer farmers may be using practices only because they are one of the sustainables to the peoples who needs foods, and if they are taught how to farm sustainably through crop rotations, and also they can continue to farm with so continue to farm if having a sustainability to like water supplies, and in the futures their descendants can farm in the same way.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Carlo M. Valenzuela, and I am here today to discuss my topic, which is what is the relationship of population growth to development. So, first, the relationship between population growth and economic growth or the development is controversial. So, in this article draws on historical data to chart the links between population growth, growth in per capita output, and overall economic growth over the past 200 years. So, low population growth in high-income countries is likely to create a social and economic problems. So, while a high population growth in a low-income countries may slow their development. So, international immigration could help to adjust these imbalances, but is opposed by many. So, drawing on economic analysis of inequality, it appears that lower population growth and limited migration may contribute to increased national and global economic inequality. So next, the relationship between population growth and economic development has been a recurrent theme in economic analysis since at least 1798, when Thomas Malthus famously argued that population growth would depress living standard in the long run. So the theory was simple. Given that there is a fixed quantity of land, so population growth will eventually reduce the amount of resources that each individual can consume. So ultimately resulting in disease, starvation, and war. So the other thing about this relationship between um, population growth to the development is that if population growth and per capita GDP growth are completely independent, so higher population growth rates would clearly lead to higher economic growth rates. It would still be true that, as noted by Piketty, only the growth in per capita GDP would give rise to improvements in economic well-being. So, on the other hand, if population growth affects per capita output growth, higher population growth rates would contribute to either higher or lower overall economic growth depending on the nature of its effects on per capita GDP. So GDP stands for gross domestic product. So that's all. Thank you.
Globalization has both direct and indirect effects on population. Certainly, the movement of people around the world has accelerated the spread of diseases such as HIV, AIDS, and SARS. More importantly, however, the global spread of public health, medical, and family planning has played a key role in worldwide gains in life uh, expectancy and reductions in fertility. Over the past 50 years, support from the international donors has been critical in improving life expectancy and reducing fertility through the global spread of modern health and family planning technology. In several Asian countries, these efforts have contributed to unprecedented economic growth. More broadly, international sport has been remarkably successful in reducing the gap in fertility and life expectancy between rich and poor countries. Now is not the time to reduce international assistance to population and reproductive health programs that have proven so spectacularly successful.